What is going on, everybody? SchwayZ here, and in today's video, I'm going to be discussing 5 things you should know about the 2024 Blazer EV. Now, before we get into today's video, I do want to extend a huge thank you to Jerry Seiner Chevrolet here of downtown Salt Lake City for giving me the opportunity to review this vehicle for you all today. If you guys are in the market for a new or used vehicle, including a Chevy Equinox or a Chevy Blazer or the variety of different crossovers and trucks on their lot, then make sure you reach out to them and let them know SchwayZ sent you. I'm going to put their information down in the description below. All right, so this is the 2024 Blazer EV. This one in particular is the RS trim level with all-wheel drive. And the Blazer EV is the latest electric crossover on the market. And this is meant to compete with the likes of the Tesla Model Y, the Ford Mustang Mach E, and a variety of different vehicles. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing 5 things you should know if you're considering one of these vehicles. Now, the first thing in no particular order is the design. Okay, now starting off with the design, you guys actually might recognize this vehicle because it was in the latest box office hit Barbie movie that came out over the summer. The mother actually owned this vehicle and she was driving around in it. But nonetheless, I think this is actually a really good looking vehicle overall. Now, the Blazer has kind of been reimagined as a sportier car. It's almost like an SUV Camaro, and the EV version carries off that same type of styling. Now, starting off with the front end, you have this big light bar that extends from passenger to driver's side. And there's a lot of different effects that this light bar can show off. I'm actually going to throw up some images on the screen to show you what that looks like. But this light bar is only available on the RS trim level or the SS. You can't actually get it on the base trim level. And it's kind of cool looking. I like how it makes it look a little bit sportier. Now, this isn't actually the headlight. This is just a cool light bar animation. Your headlight is located down below this light bar over here. And then below that, you actually have a functional air inlet that has pass-through for aerodynamic purposes. Now, this one being the RS trim level, you have a few extra black fascia touches on the front, including this front splitter down here and the black accents on the grille. The LT looks a little bit more basic than this sportier RS trim level. And then if you choose the SS, that one looks the sportiest of them all, especially if you get it in the red color. Now, moving across the side, let's talk about the wheels. Now, the RS comes with these 21-inch wheels. Now, as you can see here, they do have some additional black plastic pieces, and that helps in the aerodynamics and the efficiency to get that better range. But these are 275 wide tires. They're actually pretty big for, a typical electric car. Usually they're a little bit smaller, so you have a little bit less drag. But again, this is the sportier version being the RS, and I think they look pretty good overall, especially that color matching the exterior. Now, you do have some black plastics around the wheel well, which looks good. And then I really want to point out this trim piece over here. It's really interesting. Not only do you have some body lines that go around it, but then it's kind of interesting how this actually eats into the door. And then when you open the door up, the door is obviously behind it, and then opening it up all the way, you still have a little bit of space here, but it's just an interesting design touch that I haven't seen on very many vehicles. Now, moving back, you could see that you have a black painted mirror cap and a lot of black accents that stretch all the way through the D pillar, giving it kind of a sportier, more squatty look to it. I mean, this vehicle isn't actually short. It's about the same height as your traditional crossover, but it feels like it's a little bit shorter and sportier because you have these body lines that extend all across the body of the vehicle and that big rear quarter panel. It just looks wider, shorter, squattier, sportier, and I really like the way it looks. I think they did a really good job with the design here, making it look different than just your average crossover. Coming over to the back, you got LED taillights, which also have a cool animation to it. It's going to be hard for me to show off again because it is bright outside, but I like how it wraps around that rear fender. Now, moving all the way back, you can see you have that rear spoiler with the black painted pieces, and then just the rear end of the vehicle looks really good with the blacked out badging for your Chevy badge. You've also got your RS badge over here, and then on the left-hand side, you've got Blazer, and then the E is outlined in blue because that's kind of Chevy's theme for EV vehicles. Down at the bottom, the RS trim level has these black painted pieces for the rear bumper, which looks shiny, looks good, and matches the exterior sportiness of the vehicle. All right, now the next thing you should know is the interior styling, which is probably something I like even more than the exterior. First off, starting off with the door panel, you have nice soft touch materials all throughout the top with some red leather stitching. Looks really good. And then you have kind of a two-tone type of material here. You got this plastic material with this kind of glossed carbon fiber look above it. Just looking at this door panel, you can tell that it's a sportier vehicle overall. Soft touch leather material over here, typical window switches for Chevy or GM products. And then I do like that you have this red and blue stitching. Looks really nice. And then this material is actually just a cloth, but you can tell it looks a little bit sportier than just your typical cheap cloth that you find in a lot of entry-level vehicles. And then moving over here, you have your speaker grill for what I believe is an 8-speaker Bose audio system. Then you have a button to open up your liftgate and a little compartment over here where you can put your water bottle or store some random goodies. Now moving inwards, I really want to talk about these seats. Now there are two different types of color options. You can get this black interior, or you can get black with adrenaline red, which looks really good as well from what I've seen in the photos. But this one also looks really good because you have this red and blue stitching. You've got this Evotex leather, which is actually a fake leather, but it's supposed to last a little bit longer and wear a little bit better. You also have this cloth material. The same material that you find on the door panel is actually located on these seats, but I'm not hating it. And then you have suede over here as well, which I love having suede seats. It just makes it look a little bit more premium. You also got a suede headrest. And then just the design overall looks really good. Jumping inside, a couple more design touches I want to point out. You do have this red paneling all around this large air vent. And I think the air vent looks very futuristic, very cool looking with those red accents. And then you can open and close it just turning it clockwise or counterclockwise. And then the use of materials all across the dashboard are really nice soft touch materials. There's no hard touch plastic like you sometimes start finding in some cheaper vehicles. And then down below here, you have some red stitching. And then you have that same trim that you find on the door panel, that fake carbon fiber, a little bit more suede, again that red and blue stitching, and more leather that extends onto the passenger side. Now let's take a look at this dash. Now first off, starting off with the steering wheel, it's nice leather wrapped. You've got some red stitching here, the RS badge with some gloss black. It is flat bottom steering wheel. It feels really good in the hand. Now we'll talk about technology here in just a minute, but I want to show you off these screens. Now this is kind of a dual stack setup where you have one screen over here, then behind it you have a second screen, and this is massive for a vehicle of this size. I mean, this isn't that big of a vehicle. It's kind of your typical compact to mid-size crossover, but this screen is gigantic. And then just these nice air vents with a little bit more of that brushed chrome or brushed aluminum all around it. Feels really good. Rubberized materials here. Again, a little bit more of that cloth you find on the door panel. Some gloss black for sure, but it's not overdone. And then soft touch materials over here as well. And then you've got a large compartment with a USB port and a cigarette style outlet. Now, jumping into the second row, you do have some nice materials back here, but it isn't as nice as the first row. I will complain that this is hard touch plastic, unlike the first row. You do have that two-tone material with that plastic and carbon fiber. At least it is soft touch where you're going to rest your elbow. This is all leather, and then you do have that red and blue stitching with that cloth material and your speaker grill located below that. Now the seats are thankfully just as nice as the first row. You got that suede with that cloth with the leather. Even this headrest has a little bit of suede to it. And then jumping behind the first row, plenty of legroom back here. I mean, that's one of the benefits of having this Ultium platform is there's no big hump in the middle over here because there's no transmission tunnel. It's a flat loading floor, plenty of space to fit 3 people back here because the width of this middle seat over here is larger than your typical crossover. And then you've got a little armrest over here with 2 cup holders, and you've got 2 rear air vents, which is nice, 2 USB ports, and this one has the RS convenience package, so you got heated seats in the back as well. Now, headroom is actually pretty good back here as well. I've got a couple inches above me. And one thing I want to point out in general, the door actually sits a little bit higher, your window's a little bit smaller, so it feels like you're sitting in a little bit of a sportier vehicle than your typical crossover. And then lastly, getting into the back, not too much to report in terms of design and styling, but a pretty good amount of space back here. You don't have any type of power outlets, but you do have some LED lights on the left and the right hand side. And then going underneath, you've got a pretty decent sized compartment. You do have an area where you can put your charging cables, and then a smaller area where you can hide maybe a laptop and it doesn't roll around too much. But overall, a pretty good space. Then you can, of course, push this button and the lift gate will automatically close. Now for the second item you should know, let's talk about the powertrain. Now in order to show you that, let's open up the hood. Now, it is a little bit unfortunate that there is no front trunk or frunk on the Blazer EV, but you do have an area to fill up your brake fluid and your windshield wiper over there. But this isn't an area that you're supposed to be able to get under because there's a lot of electrical wiring here. So the powertrain of the Blazer EV runs on the Ultium platform. And this is the same platform they use on the Hummer EV, the Silverado EV. Pretty much every new GMC and Chevy product is going to be riding on the Ultium platform. And that's essentially a skateboard platform where the battery is located underneath underneath the vehicle, and then you have the body of the car sitting on top. Now the battery on the Blazer EV is an 85 kilowatt battery, and in this particular trim level with the RS all-wheel drive, you can get somewhere around 279 miles of range. Now if you choose the rear-wheel drive version, Chevy says you can get upwards of 320 miles of range, which is very similar to a Tesla Model Y and a Mustang Mach E. Now power output on the Blazer EV RS all-wheel drive is about 288 horsepower and 333 pound-feet of torque. Now, if you choose the SS trim level, which will be coming out a little bit later this year, you can get upwards of 557 horsepower and 648 pound-feet of torque. Now 0 to 60 on the RS isn't posted, but you're probably looking somewhere in the 5-second range. The SS will have a 0 to 60 under 4 seconds when you use the wide open watts mode. All right, next up, let's talk about charging. So first off, you push this button and the entire flap opens up. It actually looks really cool, kind of a cool design to the charge port. Now this vehicle is capable of upwards of 150 kilowatt DC fast charging, which is pretty much just your level 3 fast charger. Anything faster than that is gonna be hard to find when you're actually going to an electric charging station, so 150 kilowatt is perfectly fine. Now this vehicle has an 11.5 kilowatt onboard charger, and Chevy says that you can get upwards of 78 miles of range in just 10 minutes of charging. In order to activate the fast charging, you just unplug this and then your DC fast charger will plug right in, or if you're just using a level 2 240 volt charger at home, you can use it in this mode. And then to close it up, you simply push this button and it takes a second, but then the charge port will automatically close. All right, for the next set of features you should know about, let's talk about the technology and some of the amenities. Okay, so in order to talk about the technology, we're gonna have to turn this vehicle on. But how do you do that? There's actually no push button start or anything like that. Well, you actually push on the brake pedal and then this vehicle turns on, which is kind of a cool touch, but you're gonna have to get used to it. Now, first off, let's talk about this 11-inch instrument gauge cluster display. Now you can move around or manipulate it using the buttons on the steering wheel on the right hand side. You simply toggle up to go through your different radio settings, and then you can push this menu button located underneath it to cycle through different types of gauge clusters. So you got your COM, you've kind of got a sportier mode, you got your typical dual gauge cluster display, you've got a full screen maps, and then you can turn on the screen for when your safety features are activated. But it's pretty easy to use. There's not too much functionality here, but it is very vibrant, very colorful, and it's really nice to look at. Now, moving inwards, this is your 17.7 inch touchscreen display. This is larger than the 15 inch in the Tesla Model Y. Now, this runs the same software that you find on a lot of GM and Chevy products. It's very easy to use, very snappy, quick to, you click the button and it automatically pulls it up. Your home button automatically goes back. Very easy to use. Now, the only difference here is your quick access buttons, instead of being on the left-hand side, are actually located at the top. So you can go to your music, your maps, you can open up your phone settings, and you can use your Google Voice Assistant, because this does come built in with Google connectivity. So you can ask it questions like a smart home device. You can have it find electric charging stations. Lots of details baked into the software because this is an Android-based system. But this does have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, which is nice. And then a couple menus I want to show you here is the charging menu, which by the push of a button, you can set different types of charging schedules. You can look at where the different charging stations are located once you sign in, of course. And then swiping to the right, I want to show you the different drive modes in this vehicle. You've got normal, sport, snow, ice, and then a customizable My Mode. And then I want to show you the 360-degree camera that comes equipped in this particular vehicle that I'm reviewing today. You can have the view of the front, overhead, you can do a side view, and then you can cycle to the back as well and do those same types of modes, including a trailer hitch. And you've got various settings over here as well. Now, GM does a really good job with its 360 cameras. It's very clear, very crisp, very easy to park this vehicle because it is kind of wide. It takes a little bit getting used to the proportions, and this 360 camera definitely helps. Now, in order to turn this vehicle off, you can actually push this off button over here, and then it asks you if you want to turn it off. But this car kind of knows when you want to turn the vehicle off. So if you just got home and put it into park and you unlock the door, it automatically turns off as well. So it kind of has this smart feature where it knows exactly when you want to turn the vehicle off. Now, I will complain a little bit, maybe I'm a little old school, but when it doesn't know that you're going to get out of the vehicle and you actually have to push this button to turn it off, it's a little bit cumbersome. I would have preferred for them just to have like a push to start button over here so that when I'm ready to exit the vehicle and it doesn't recognize that, I don't have to go through this touchscreen to turn it off. Now down here, you have your climate control settings that are always at the bottom. But the nice thing is you have redundant control. So of course you can turn up the temperature here, or you can use this switch on the left or the right hand side. The other thing you can do is turn up the fan speed, but you can also do that pushing the buttons here. So this is kind of the best of both worlds. If you want touchscreen controls, you have them, but you also have redundant controls located down here at the bottom. And these switches feel really good. They're rubberized. They've got a little bit of aluminum to them. And I think it fits the motif of the car. Opening this up, you got a large storage compartment, 2 USB ports, and it's pretty deep. You can hide a bunch of stuff in there. And then you got a wireless charging pad over here as well. Now, in terms of technology, you've also got a rear view camera mirror on the RS trim level. Now, in case you're wondering, this vehicle does have heated and ventilated seats, which can be activated using the touchscreen control. And you've got a heated steering wheel, which can be activated using the button over here on the right-hand side of the steering wheel. Now, the ventilated seats are actually pretty loud, but they are very powerful. Probably the best ventilated seats I've experienced inside of a vehicle. Now, the next cool piece of technology is you do have a head-up display on the Chevy Blazer RS. Okay, speaking of technology, let's talk about some of the safety features here. Now, you can get this vehicle equipped with pretty much all the standard safety tech. Got blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, automatic high beams, lane centering, and lane keep assist, some of which is standard on every single trim level. But you can also get this thing optioned with Chevy's Super Cruise, which allows you to drive pretty much hands-free on upwards of 400,000 miles of US roads. Now, I don't believe it's available on the RS trim level, but it is available on the SS. Let's get behind the wheel of this thing and see how it drives on the road. Now, first thing you'll immediately notice is this does pump in kind of this electronic sound on the interior. That's something I've noticed a lot of electric vehicles are now starting to do because it adds to the experience inside the cabin. It makes it feel a little bit, I don't know, more unique, more almost similar to an internal combustion engine, but it is by no means an exhaust system. And it's not meant to replicate it. It's just meant to kind of use more of your senses. And I actually like that they do that. I know a lot of people are complaining, why do you have that sound? But I think it makes it a little bit more stimulating to drive an electric vehicle. Okay, here we are on a flat road. It's pretty quick. I can't say, okay, that feels better. Yeah, that feels a lot better. You know, I think from like a 0 to 60, it's not insanely powerful, but I think when you're talking, you know, 30 to 60, it pulls very good. I mean, that's where that over 300 pound-feet of torque, you feel it. Honestly, I think it feels more than 300 pound-feet of torque. It feels closer to 400, 450. Because it's instant torque, it feels a little bit stronger than it is. But here we're gonna do a little, I mean, it gets up to speed perfectly fine. This is probably more powerful than any of the current generation Blazers that are the internal combustion versions. This thing is quicker than that, but it's probably in the 5-second range, 5.5 or so. It's not much quicker than that. Okay, now I'm actually gonna put it into sport mode here, and let's gun it. And when I put it into sport mode, you have a little bit of a different sound inside of the cabin too. It sounds a little sportier. I mean, this thing really shines when you're going 30 to 60. I mean, the torque is really strong. It's just not the best 0 to 60, but nonetheless, it's still plenty quick for just day-to-day driving. This can easily pass any vehicle on the freeway or just driving around. Now, here we are driving over just some potholes, and it's very calm and composed. This doesn't have any type of fancy MagneRide suspension or anything like that, but it honestly doesn't need it. Chevy does a fantastic job with its suspensions. They handle really well. They're very, very soft on the road. And I gotta say, the loudest thing in this vehicle is the ventilated seats. Everything else is incredibly quiet. It's what you would expect from a typical electric vehicle. Now, it's kind of interesting here. You do have regen braking. So when you let off of the gas, it will kind of slow the vehicle down, but you can almost activate when that regen braking works. What I mean by that is, here I am driving, I'm gonna let off the gas, and it's slowly going to come to a stop. But if I push this paddle behind the steering wheel, I can actually brake the car using the paddle shifter rather than the brake pedal. It's a little bit different than all the other electric vehicles I've reviewed, where the regen braking automatically turns on when I let off of the accelerator. Here, it has regen, but it will increase the regen when you push that paddle shifter. So kind of interesting, but that way you can get a little bit more energy back into the battery. Let's do one more pull here. Yeah, this is plenty quick. It's a fun car to drive. Okay, now the fifth and final thing you should know about this vehicle is the different trim levels, the pricing, and the warranty. Now, starting off with the trim levels, there's currently 4. You can get this in the 2LT, the RS all-wheel drive, which is the vehicle behind me, the RS rear-wheel drive, and you can get this in the SS. And they're going to be coming out in the next 3 to 6 months. Now, the entry-level 2LT starts around $57,700. If you want to step up to this RS trim, which is what I would choose because you have a little bit nicer styling, a little bit extra amenities on the inside, well, this one starts around $60,215. And if you step up to the SS, which is going to be the most powerful of them all, it's going to compete with the Model Y Performance, the Mustang Mach E GT Performance Edition. Well, that one's going to cost you just shy of $66,000. Now, in terms of warranty, you get your standard 3-year, 36,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty, your 5-year, 50,000-mile powertrain warranty, and then your electrical components are warranted up to 8 years and 100,000 miles. Okay, so what are my overall thoughts on the Chevy Blazer EV? Well, personally, I like it more than the internal combustion version of the Blazer. I think this one's a little bit sportier, has some cooler features, better tech on the inside, and even though I don't think the name fits, it definitely doubles down on the sportiness that they didn't necessarily accomplish in the internal combustion version. That said, I think the entry-level version is just a little bit too expensive at around $57,000. I kind of wish they introduced a lower-priced entry-level version, somewhere around 50 grand, to better compete with the Tesla Model Y and the Ford Mustang Mach E. But overall, I think it's an amazing vehicle, especially if you choose the SS trim level and you get 0 to 60 under 4 seconds, that sporty styling. I personally think this looks a little bit better than the Tesla Model Y. It looks a little bit more aggressive, a little sportier, more muscular. But what are your thoughts on the 2024 Blazer EV? Would you take this over the competition, and why? Let me know down in the comments below. And then if this is your first time stopping by, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos, everything from EVs to big Hemi V8s and everything in between. Also check me out on all the social media at SchwayZ_. Until next time, everybody, I hope you stay SchwayZ, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.